Welcome to the Accessible Learning Experience, where we help you turn learning barriers into learning opportunities. In this episode, AIM Center TA Specialist Michelle Soriano chats with Kathy Fortney, Jason Adams, and April Burton from the Francis Howell School District in Missouri. Kathy, Jason, and April share lots of great tips and insights related to the procurement process for accessible educational materials and technologies within their district. I think you'll hear during this interview how passionate they are and how well they work together to ensure that all students who need accessible educational materials within their district have them in a timely manner. Throughout this episode, you'll hear references to the CAS website. The specific CAS website being mentioned is the one for the National Center on Accessible Educational Materials, or AIM Center at CAST. You'll find that website at aem.cast.org, and we really encourage you to visit and check out the show notes for the resources Kathy mentions at the end of this episode, including the AIM pilot, the quality indicators for the provision of AIM, and other resources that will help you with vetting for accessibility. All right, Michelle, take it away.
Hi, April, Jason, and Kathy. We are so thrilled to have you join us for this podcast. Let's start off by having each of you tell us a little bit about yourselves.
Well, I'll go ahead and start. So my name is April Burton, and I am an instructional technology content leader for the Francis Howell School District. So I really primarily help provide professional development for our teachers focused on technology.
My name is Jason Adams. I'm the Technology Services Manager for the district, and I oversee the end user experience for our teachers and students, as well as manage our inventory that we have.
And I am Kathy Fortney. I am a coordinator for occupational and physical therapy, assistive technology, and ADA compliance for the Francis Howell School District.
So how did you all come to work on accessibility together?
So I don't know if you've picked up on Kathy's conversational style, but she is very, very, very passionate about accessibility and helping every student succeed. And it is almost impossible to say no to her. So the way that I think the three of us came to work together is just her saying, you will be a part of this, you will help us, and we will make this better. So we've been working together for a few years now. I've known Kathy for 10 years, and she's a force to be reckoned with, and God help you if you say no to her.
I would definitely agree on all accounts of what Jason just said. It is very difficult to say no to Kathy, but she's true to her heart. It is difficult to say no to helping all kids succeed. And that's really the root of it. I was a classroom teacher for 15 years. And I saw firsthand the power and how all students want to succeed. And when we take away those barriers to where they can succeed in times when maybe they weren't able to because of whatever reason was inhibiting them, it is so powerful, and it just changes that dynamic. And that's what we're here for. We're here to help all of our students succeed. And Kathy knows that, and she knows how to pull the right people in the room, and she knows how to get things done. And so it's very easy to also be passionate about that work.
So I'm just going to say I'm a much nicer person than they would lead you to believe. No, I am not afraid to have those conversations, but I will say too that I am really blessed to be able to work with people who really are passionate the same way that I am. They act like I'm the one, but I'm telling you, there's a lot of passion here. And I love when people get excited about the things that can help kids succeed. I am an occupational therapist by trade. I got into this line of work because I love the people in life that don't give up. And when there are roadblocks to success, I love when people say, okay, but let's just do it a different way. Let's just try it a different way. We can still get there, right? And so that continual move toward independent as kids can be, and their self-advocacy and self-esteem around what they can do, even if it's in a slightly different way, it doesn't matter, they can still do it. That is something that's a shared philosophy with the other people that are on this podcast, and I hear it, and there's an enthusiasm and an excitement. So it's just a thrill to be able to find other people who are willing to take on the challenge, to really take on the challenge, because it's a challenge worth taking. It's the thing that can make or break whether or not a student thinks they can succeed in life, and that's important work. So I'm very fortunate and very thankful that I get to work with a great team.
Kathy, let's start with you. What is your working definition of accessibility?
Yeah, so I thought a little bit about this, and kind of the low-hanging fruit, I guess, is it's about access. So really equal access to the environment and really anything that a student is going to do in that environment. I think the one thing that is super important is to realize that that's going to look different for everybody, but we want to be sure that every student has the ability to have meaningful engagement with really everything that they do. So whatever we're putting in front of a student, whatever we're asking them to interact with, we need to be sure that that can be done in a meaningful way. Now, that can be accomplished using different methods or different tools, but it really has to be a level of robust. It really has to be a level of this is really at the same level that everybody else is getting information. And really, it's best approached if we can kind of look at it in a universal design for learning. So those tools are available just to any student, and the formats are in a way that they can be easily accessed. So on the front end, if we do our work, then on the back end, it just is seamless and students can just access what they need.
I love it. I'm hearing that access, I'm hearing learner variability, and I'm really excited to hear about that high rigorous level for all of the kiddos. Why is the idea of access important for students with disabilities? Jason, what do you think?
We're a public education institution, and we need to show our community that we're open for everyone, no matter what your walk of life is. If you're in our community, you deserve to get the same level of education as your peers. So if you have a disability or not, we want to make sure that we give you the same tools that are available to everyone. And I'm just going to brag on our district for a second. We have an incredible visually impaired program, and we've heard many, many times that families move from out of district to our district just because of the level of access that we give those students. So we want to make sure that we're being consistent with everyone that comes in with the devices and the technology that they have. And we also need to recognize that technology should not be a hurdle. That's for students with disabilities, students without disabilities. So we don't want people to see technology as a hurdle. If it can be removed, it should be. Sometimes it can't be. Sometimes we can only just lower that hurdle so it makes things easier for those students.
Shout out to Francis Howell in Missouri, the school district. That's fabulous. April, what do you think about that?
Well, if you walk into any classroom across our district, from our littles all the way up through our high schools, you're going to see all kinds of learners. So every student comes to us with different needs, different abilities, and we want to make sure that we meet all of those students where they are, and really they all deserve that. And it really makes for a much more pleasant atmosphere when everyone's needs are being met. Because if you think about it, if a student is bored or things aren't working for him or her, that's when they start to act out or when they start to check out. And it becomes more of a behavior issue than really a learning issue. So we want to make sure that we're meeting all of our students where they're at.
Love that. Access really does impact everything. So we've been talking about access. We've been talking about Francis Howell School District. Let's start digging a little bit deeper. Tell us about how Francis Howell has approached improving access through how they purchase curriculum and materials.
I could speak to that. So this is Kathy. So whenever we're considering purchase of new materials, we've really started a process of being sure that on the front end, we're including the correct language and the expectations that our district has for accessibility. So what that means is every time that we're looking at something new for curriculum, we're having those conversations with those people that are making the decisions, and we're asking them to include conversations with the vendors about, we want to be sure that we have the NIMAC version of any print materials. We want to be sure that we have asked for the VPAT for any digital materials. And And that language is included in any purchase order or any RFP that goes out. So that's important. The more that we ask, the more that the vendors know that this is an expectation that Francis Howell has. So a lot of times too, we'll have these conversations every year with the individuals who are purchasing curriculum, and we ask them every year to try the very best that they can to back up the timeline. The importance of that is that the sooner that we can know what the materials are, the sooner that we can vet the materials, and the sooner we can be sure that we get that process going to get an alternative format if we need to. So that all of those things together make a more fluid process. I do think in the future we would like to really talk about even more screening and a better vetting process, hopefully getting some end users in to be able to screen those kinds of things and give us feedback, give the vendors feedback about the specific issues around accessibility.
So, Kathy, we love acronyms in education, and you just mentioned a couple of them that are really great. And I'm wondering if you can clarify what those acronyms stand for. So we have VPAT, NIMAC, RFP.
Absolutely, yes, we do love us some acronyms. So VPAT is a voluntary product accessibility template, and that is something that we ask for when we're talking about digital materials. That gives us an accessibility rating of digital materials. Okay, so the next one was NIMAC, and that is National Instructional Materials Access Center, and that is where any kind of print materials are sent to make sure that we have a digital format of that print material. So like a textbook would go there, and we could then access the digital form of that. And then an RFP is request for proposal. So that's anytime we are going out to purchase new materials, we're going to want information from the vendors, and we are going to ask for a request for proposal.
Excellent. Thanks so much. And I had one more question because I'm wondering about individuals who are interested in this language that you're providing to vendors and how they might go about maybe. Is there support that you're using that has guided you and your team through this?
Absolutely. I'm so glad you asked that, and I can't believe I didn't mention it. But actually, we just go out to the CAST website. There is a place there that gives you the specific language. Literally, we copy and paste it. We just tell folks, copy and paste that. It's exactly the way it needs to be said. And we just put that right into those documents whenever we're sending them off to vendors.
Fabulous. Thanks so much for that clarification. April, do you have anything that you'd like to add to this area?
Well, in all of our different curriculum areas and all of the different levels of students from our younger to our older, there's a lot of hands in there that are purchasing resources for instruction. And so I'm making sure that the right people are at the table having those conversations, that we're constantly bringing up the need to ask our vendors, and just making sure that we're holding those vendors accountable and showing our teachers and those people who are at the table that this is how our students can access these accessibility tools. So making sure that it's one thing to to ask, does your product have these tools within them? But if our teachers don't know how to use them, and we're not constantly sitting down with teachers and showing them, oh, look at what this does and how this can support all of the learners in your room. So we're just constantly bringing it up, really. I mean, sometimes it feels like we're nagging people, like, oh, here they are again talking about accessibility, but it is so beneficial for all students.
And Jason, knowing that you're one of the technology leaders in the district, is there a specific perspective that y'all have approached this through technology?
Yeah, so the most important thing that we've realized is technology is not a one-size-fits-all for students, nor should it be. So all of our students that have disabilities have a case manager, and those case managers know what works best for those students. So we're not a one-time shop for different types of devices. We have Macs, we have PCs, Chromebooks, iPads, anything with a power button, we tend to get it. So when the case managers reach out, they may say that, hey, this student with visual impairment might benefit from a larger screen PC, or this student that has trouble communicating might benefit from an iPad Pro with some of those apps that allow the student to tap on the individual words that they're trying to communicate with. So working with those different teams allows us to pair the correct device with the student that's going to benefit from it. The other thing that we've realized over the years is we want to make sure that the technology services are as seamless as possible. We don't want a student to feel singled out or separate from their peers when they access that information. So a good example of that is the standardized testing that we do in the state of Missouri, our MAP test. We used to have an accommodation for text-to-speech, and that was something that had to be set up for individual students. And we realized that that really should be a service that's available to all our students if they so choose. So having that available means that one student that may not want to identify themselves as having a specific need no longer feels in the spotlight. They're accessing the same features that their peers and their fellow classmates have.
How do you purchase technology at Francis Howell?
Our buildings, our departments, we're always looking to add technology to our schools and our students. So we might have individual schools purchase technology on their own. We might have a pretty significant order. We'll go out for RFP, as Kathy mentioned earlier. And we try and get those devices in as quickly as possible. The one challenge that we did see, the same as any organization across the world last couple of years, is the supply chain and just how long it takes to get equipment in. And when we're ordering in carts of Chromebooks for just general ed classrooms and it takes forever to come in, it's an inconvenience, but there's a way to get over it. But when we're waiting for months for a large screen laptop or a iPad that's going to help a student communicate, if it's taking months for that to come in, it's not an inconvenience, it's a pretty big problem. And a lot of those devices we purchase with an assistive technology grant, and we found one little cheat that has helped us out in this regard, and that is purchasing equipment in ahead of time. So knowing that we probably want to have a few iPads on hand, we probably do want to have some large screen laptops in hand so they're ready to go, we've purchased those in to have right now, and then when a student has a need for it, then we approach the assistive technology people to get reimbursed for that grant. So it's a win-win all around.
Wow, this is fabulous. What an amazing team to come together from all these different perspectives and really look at access in that manner. So the big question, how has this process impacted how the district will purchase curriculum and materials moving forward?
Well, I can speak to that. I think that we all just have a general increased awareness. I think as we're having conversations, we've realized that really everybody across departments needs to be at the table. I think that we started out with that with the ADA Advisory Committee. We had that committee together anyway, and we realized we all have different pieces of information. So the more that we can have those cross conversations, there's just that increased awareness across the board. So anytime we're purchasing, anytime that we're considering a new curriculum, anytime that we're going out for technology bid for anything, we need to really have that as part of the consideration process. So just having the conversations. I think sometimes it's overwhelming because it's a lot. They're just a lot. There's a lot of departments. There's a lot of people in a school district. I think sometimes it's overwhelming. I will tell folks all the time what I tell my kids at home when they look at a big mess in the house and they're like, I don't know where to start. I just tell them, do something. Just do something. Anything you can do toward a solution is progress. So any little tiny move that you make, any conversation that you have, any meeting that you invite yourself to is a step toward being better. And we can always be better as far as making this environment better for students.
And one thing I'll add to that is it's not always adding a new step that can improve something. Looking at your existing processes and procedures and improving upon them are also very important. So a good example of that is we have a technology authorization procedure where individual schools and departments will consider the devices that they want to purchase, and they go through an approval purchase to make sure that it's being budgeted correctly and they're purchasing appropriate devices and it's just going to work fine for the environment. It gives us a chance to hit the pause button, just take a step back and look at that individual purchase, not just from should we make the purchase, but has everyone considered the implications and the things that we need to consider before moving ahead with the purchase as it pertains to accessibility. And that allows us to just achieve both those goals at the same time instead of coming up with a whole new procedure.
Wow. I just heard so many great things. I heard just start. I heard look at the routines and procedures and the processes that are already in place and see how you can improve on those. And I also said, don't stop there. Once you get them trained, make sure everybody knows how to use it. We know we have other district teams who are really listening in on how they too can expand and improve on access. So where might you suggest that they start?
So I can start at least. I think that they start by having conversations with just really anybody that they can. Make sure that they're part of the processes. A lot of times if there's a committee or something going on to determine possible purchases, a lot of times everybody that's on this podcast will say, hey, do you mind if I just sit in on that? I might have something to add. Rarely does somebody say no. You can't come to our meeting. So a lot of times just having those conversations or starting those conversations is really important. But I also think starting with a mindset of everyone, so that universal design for learning, we need to do a better job of making sure that any of the things that we're putting in front of students are accessible in the way that we talked about, that's meaningful, they can engage with them purposefully, and they can do it in a way that they're comfortable with. And it doesn't seem weird because we've now just said, here are some tools that work for everybody. We've had a mindset of that over the years, and it's worked well, pointing out to students what accessibility features are there so that they're aware of them. Classroom teachers just telling all the students about those features so that everybody knows that those are available. We have some things that are pushed out centrally, some literacy support tools that just kind of show up in a Google Chrome extension, and there they are, and if a student needs them, they can use them. So when you make it less different, it works for everybody.
And I can piggyback off of that as well because once we've done our homework and we've made sure that the devices and the programs that we have procured do have the tools that we want to use with students to make sure that everyone's needs are met, we also need to take a step back in the instructional design process. So that goes down to just helping teachers to think forward when they're going to create a video, for example, for instruction. Are we making sure that we're putting in subtitles? Or when we're designing a quiz, so we are in our second year of a Canvas LMS adoption, and that allows us to have all of these different wonderful features that all of our students can take advantage of, all of these accessibility tools. But we need to make sure that our teachers are thinking of, well, when I'm going to design a quiz, which tools do I have at my fingertips that have these accessibility features to accommodate all the needs in my classroom? So we're just making sure that after we have made these purchases, are we then making the next step of making some sound instructional decisions in our classrooms?
And another thing that people should really bear in mind is, Kathy mentioned this earlier, that, oh no, it's not this person again. There really shouldn't be the one person that kind of holds up the stop sign and says, whoa, 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 have you considered this? And we go all the way back to the drawing board. The drawing board should always include a wide number of people that can view things from different lenses. We want to make sure that everyone is part of the team. You don't want one person to kind of be that information holder. Everyone should be looking at every purchase as, is this accessible for everyone? Can everyone participate? Can everyone get involved? And if no one is saying anything, maybe you need to include more people in those conversations instead of just going all the way forward in that process, get the device in, just to find out that one student that really wants to participate just doesn't have that opportunity to.
So it's truly a team effort. It's truly coming together. And what I've heard throughout the theme of this podcast is really looking at it from a universal standpoint. And we know that a universal standpoint, you can't have it without looking at access and ensuring accessibility for all of the kiddos. Last question. What additional resources can you point individuals to help them navigate through this process?
So I would say for sure, CAST, the website, has just been phenomenal. So anything on the website around accessible educational materials, I just can't say enough about it. There is something called the AIM pilot. It's quality indicators. It really helps a team to know where they are in the process, know the next steps to take, and really helps keep you on track. So there's always a way to move forward, and that AIM pilot, the quality indicators, really just helps you know really just the next step. So I would really encourage people to look for that. I think it will help you really just frame what you need to be working on.
Excellent. So yeah, there's great quality indicators located on the website underneath the Coordinate tab. And so those quality indicators can support individuals as they're looking at building these coordinated systems. And you mentioned the AIM pilot, which would you say that supports you in developing a roadmap?
Absolutely. I think this is so big, sometimes you really just don't have any idea where to start. And it really helps define all the expectations along the way, both from the individual level all the way up just to the system level. So that is a great place to start, and it's a good conversation to have with a lot of individuals in the room. It just guides the process.
Fantastic information. Thank you all so much for taking us through your journey as you've looked at improving access through purchasing the curriculum and the conversations that you've had. And we can't wait to see how others take this and really look at exploring this journey on their own.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Accessible Learning Experience, brought to you by the National Center on Accessible Educational Materials at CAST. You can find us on the web at aem.cast.org. There you'll find show notes with links to all of the resources mentioned on each episode. Thanks again for listening, and remember, accessibility is everyone's responsibility. The contents of this podcast were developed under a cooperative agreement with the U.S. Department of Education. However, those contents do not necessarily represent the policy of the U.S. Department of Education, and you should not assume endorsement by the federal government.